Greetings, conscious entrepreneurs. I'm Sajdah Wendy Muhammad. I wanted to reach out and say happy Monday and talk to you a little bit about social media. So many of us as entrepreneurs are really confused about how to use social media. And we don't understand all the factors that we need to concern ourselves with, or the things we need to factor in, right? So what we tend to do is we see what's happening in pop culture and we go, okay, I'm just going to do that. This is what they're doing. This is what I need to do. But there's other things that you need to consider as an entrepreneur. Let me tell you something. I've lost a lot of money on advertising and on social media advertising, and I've made money on social media, using social media as an advertising stream and using other forms of marketing and advertising. I've made money and lost money there is the point I'm trying to make. And I would say that what I gained, though, when I lost the money was I gained a certain level of certainty. I know what works. And because I lost the money, I know what don't work. So the first thing you want to consider is your industry. What are some of the norms in your industry? And then you want to decide, do I go with the norm, or do I want to be creative and design something that is different from what is normal and what is out there? So that is a really clear distinction you need to make. Let me give you an example. And this goes into thinking about what you're advertising and who you're advertising to. Okay. Y'all know me. I'm going to give you free game based on my experiences. I'm not somebody who's out here talking theory. I'm not somebody who's copied off somebody else and going to give you somebody else's game. I'm giving you my game that I've bought and paid for with my blood, sweat, and tears. And I want to share it with you all today. And not just today, but in general, that's just how I roll. I'm going to give you some information if I can. Here's another thing that happens before I get into, I'm going to talk a little bit about healthcare marketing so that you can understand what I'm saying. Here's another thing that happens to you now on social media. I've done programs with people who end up getting close enough to me where they can mimic what I do or say what I say or take the product or service that I have and copy it. That has happened to me on more than one occasion. And funny story is that, that I have all these little things that I do and that I say because I'm tapped into my authenticity. So a lot of times the things that you hear me say might be something that came from my grandmother, my parents. It might come from my spiritual base. It might come from my profession. It may come from some unique experience that I've had that I tend to crack up about, and now it's funny. And so I put them together. And in this particular case, I was working with a woman who, and we were doing, well, I won't even say, because I don't even want to let y'all know who it is to give them no props. But anyway, we were working on something together on social media. And she had asked me if we could, partner on this. And I had this little colloquialism that I had made up that was, from my authentic, unique experiences and me laughing at something that happened to me. And she took it and copied it. And I asked her, I said, what's up with that? And she said, I learned this in my class I took. I took a social media class and somebody taught me that. And I'm like, nah, sis, nah. But I want you to know that that's going to happen to you. Because let's say you make candles. Let's say you make jewelry. Somebody's going to get close enough to you or study you enough where they're going to copy you. We do this in our community all the time. They're going to copy you. They're going to try to do what you do. And next thing you know, you're going to have to figure out how to reinvent yourself. So what I say is get out ahead of it. Stay authentic. Keep your content authentic to your unique experience and continue to recreate yourself. Nobody else can buy your experiences or take your experiences from you and how you interpret them in your own unique, authentic way. So now let's talk about marketing and advertising and social media. We do a lot of advertising in the healthcare space at the Minimally Invasive Vascular Center. One of the things that we've learned is we've learned the behaviors of patients. We understand what demographic we can advertise to and what we can say that will either drive people to call us on the phone and make an appointment, or that would just serve as education. And all that comes through our analysis. So we know how many hits we get off of a particular advertising. We know how to trace that to the phone calls that come into the office. Let's say we get 10,000 hits on a particular ad, and then it looks like there's 7,500 click-throughs where we say call now and people actually click and call. But then let's say we get to the office and we realize we only got 50 appointments. Well, we understand what that gap in data means is that there's some behavioral trait that's happening either when they call the office or through our intake process that is making people not end up coming in for a first appointment. Is it that we don't take their insurance? Then we may say, let's look to see, should we get credentialed with that company? Then we say, we can't really get credentialed with them because they don't pay enough. We don't really want to deal with them. Or we may say, well, what's going on? Do we got a lazy person at the front desk? Is it somebody at the front desk who's not giving information out properly? What is it? So those behaviors we trace down, even with my show. And this goes into understanding who your audience is. I advertise and I focus on entrepreneurship. And there's all different types of entrepreneurs. There are people who started from nothing and now they're here. There's people who started their business maybe after having a background in the streets and they started their business in a halfway house. There's people like me who come out of the corporate world and who say, you know what, I got all this training, I got all this stuff I know how to do. I want to do it for myself. There's all kind of people. And people who come out of that corporate space are not going to sit down and listen to a podcast where you're explaining them what an LLC is. They're not going to listen to a podcast where you're explaining to them what a marketing plan is. However, that person who didn't have that background would love to be a part of that podcast where you explain to them what are all the checklist items for me to start my business. Okay, so the audiences are different. Those different audiences of entrepreneurs respond differently to advertising. Just like in healthcare, depending on who you market to, socioeconomic makes a difference, age makes a difference, zip code makes a difference. Certain people in certain zip codes are not going to look at an advertising and pick up the phone and make an appointment. They're just not going to do it. But there are certain zip codes where you can advertise and they're going to absolutely pick up the phone and make an appointment. You got to know what you're dealing with. Some are just going to use your ad for education. Same thing goes with entrepreneurs. One thing about entrepreneurs, you got to know how to market to us. If you are one of those persons and you subscribe sort of to this pop culture type of posting and social media strategy, then if you post at the last minute, 9 times out of 10, people like me are not going to be able to join your podcast or sign up or whatever. If you post something this morning for something you're happening at 10 a.m., you probably won't catch people like me because I just can't do it. So when you're trying to attract, so I know my audience are a lot of people like me. So I have several flyers I may have. I may post one a week ahead, one 3 days ahead, and then I keep reminding them so that I don't get bumped off their calendar if they have a challenge for that time space. There's different ways to market. Sometimes if you got more of a pop culture audience, if you start advertising too early, they forget about it or it gets lost in their posts. It depends on your audience. So you got to know your audience. You got to know how to use your unique and authentic content in order to put that out there about your business. You have to know how to be creative because somebody's going to steal your idea. Somebody's going to come along and try to do what it is that you do. But you got to know your audience and know how your people behave. Look, I have so many busy entrepreneurs that follow me and have been following me since 2008. And then I got some newer entrepreneurs, people who want to be in business or people who just started out in business who follow me. And the behaviors are different. Let me give you an example. If I post something about my show and I say, today I'm talking about multiple streams of income, I might get 50 likes, right? And so one might think, wow, not a lot of people are engaging. Well, then what happens? When I go to my click-throughs on my website analytics, I'll see that 2,000 people clicked through from Instagram to listen to the show. So what is that telling me about their behavior? Is that they're not really the engaging type. There's a small group, but that they do follow and they do listen. You also have to think about, how do you train your followers? Some people have just trained their followers to look at them. They post cute pictures, they post sexy pictures, and then people just get on there and look at them. And then the minute they say, hey, buy these earrings or buy this necklace or buy this hat, they can't get a business out of it, even though they got a lot of followers. Why? Because they've trained people on their social media to look at them. Some people train their followers differently. So those are all things that you have to consider and that you have to understand about social media. It is not a monolithic type of thing. There are infinite numbers of combinations and ways in which you can do this. And I think it's important that you get that. For me, I like giving out free game. So I like content. But guess what? It took me a while to learn that. Because when I first started off with my show and the Mind of an Entrepreneur movement, I always had guests and I always had partners anytime I appeared online. And then there were times where there was a time, maybe about a year, when I didn't do the show. I think it was when I was first moving to Maryland and we were starting up the clinics and I was traveling a lot and I just didn't get a chance to do the show every week. And I took off about a year. People were emailing me like, hey, where are you at? We want you to come back. We want to see the show. So guess what I did? I started the show back up, but it was by myself. Then every once in a while I put in guests. I only have 3 guests that I've ever had whose ratings are bigger than the ratings that are by myself when I do the show by myself. So what did that tell me? That told me, Wendy, you got to get on here and talk. You got to get on here and show your face, and you got to get on here and talk. If I post something on my social media and I post pictures of somebody else, y'all be acting shady. Y'all don't like it. But if I get on here and talk and run my mouth, then y'all like it. And I appreciate that. But these are behaviors. You got to use social media to track and understand behaviors and be your unique and authentic self. Your authenticity is your currency. All right. So happy Monday. Don't forget to go to sajdahhouse.com. Get your Elijah coins, SAJDAHHOUSE. I'm fulfilling orders today. So I'm in my work gear, ready to hit the post office and send y'all stuff out. So I really, really appreciate it. Each of the coins are graded. They're authentic, copper from the messenger's home. They each have their own unique barcode and their own unique number. So they'll be worth a lot. I don't know if I told y'all, but I initially had this really beautiful packaging that I was going to do with the coins. And I was going to give you a paper certificate. And I took that to prayer and took it to Allah. And the very next day, the people who I had engaged to do that for me decided they wanted to double the price. And I said, okay, Allah, you didn't like that. That was your answer. And then that very same day, I learned about coin grading and valuations of coins that make them appreciate in value, and that having the actual coin have its own individual barcode that is encased with the coin actually is more valuable than me mailing you a separate certificate. See, that keeps people from counterfeiting it. And I told you how people are fake nowadays. They will make up stuff in a minute. They don't copy you in a minute. I guarantee you. So that's the idea behind it. Now, when we decide to break ours out of the casing and bling it, we should keep that top part, that is our barcode, and just keep it safe somewhere so that years later, the necklace that we make out of the coin, we know that we've got a unique international graded barcode that comes along with it. So later on, if it becomes an heirloom and you pass it down, there's a valuation standard for it. So there's a method to the madness. All right. Happy Monday. Peace and blessings. Hope you learned something. Ciao.